Welcome to Echo of Crime YouTube channel. They called it unbreakable until one man walked right out. In 1998, the United States federal system operated a maximum security facility in Illinois so secure that inmates joked about its nickname, the Iron Fortress. No escapes in 30 years. No breaches. No mistakes. Until one morning in spring 2001, a routine head count revealed that inmate Michael Dorsey, a former investment broker convicted of bank fraud and tampering with federal evidence, was gone. Not missing. Gone. No broken locks. No tunnels. No alarms. He had vanished in broad daylight, and no one in the FBI could explain how. Before he was a prisoner, Dorsey was a systems analyst and consultant for corporate security firms. He understood infrastructure, not just how buildings were designed, but how people within them behaved. When the FBI caught him in 1996 for a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme, they called him a con man with an architect's brain. Inside prison, he used his skills to become trustworthy. He volunteered for maintenance duties, janitorial, electrical, and clerical work that allowed him to study the layout of the facility inch by inch. He memorized guard rotations and noted which contractors entered for repairs. Over 3 years, he collected data in his head, a map of routine and habit. He wasn't planning a breakout with violence or tools. He was building a statistical model of human error. In late 2000, a construction company was hired to upgrade the prison's electrical grid. Civilian workers entered daily through service gates after signing paper logs manually checked by guards. No digital tracking. To save time, the company issued extra uniforms and helmets for assistance. Dorsey watched carefully. Each morning the crew marched in. Each evening they marched out. Nobody counted the faces, only the helmets. So he waited. He cleaned floors, moved tools, and watched patterns. On a Monday in March 2001, when 2 contractors called in sick, he filled the gap. Wearing a borrowed uniform and a company badge made from a laminated work order, he joined the crew heading for the North Gate. The guard barely looked up. At 3:17 p.m., Michael Dorsey walked out of a maximum security federal prison, past armed officers, through 2 locked checkpoints, and onto the highway where a delivery truck waited. He was gone for 48 hours before anyone even realized he was missing. When the warden called Washington, the reaction was disbelief. The FBI immediately launched a national alert. News networks broke the story under the headline, "Inmate walks out of federal prison, FBI humiliated." Dorsey's escape wasn't just a breach of security. It was a breach of trust in the system itself. He had used his understanding of routine to turn complacency into a weapon. There was no violence, no chaos, just the perfect illusion of belonging. As one retired agent later admitted, "We weren't outsmarted by force. We were outsmarted by pattern." Every move they made, he had already mapped out. When the FBI issued a nationwide alert on March 22, 2001, confidence was high. They had an escapee, not a killer, a financial criminal, not a survivalist. They expected him to make a mistake, use a credit card, call family, show up on camera. But Michael Dorsey wasn't running on panic. He was running on logic. FBI analysts pulled his financial records, bank ties, and previous associates. Nothing. Not a single withdrawal, not a phone ping, not a car rental. Meanwhile, Dorsey was already 5 states away. He used an unregistered prepaid cell, paid cash for a used sedan, and rented a storage unit under the alias Mark Dalton. Inside it, he built a small workspace, blueprints, burner IDs, and printed public databases showing where FBI field offices were located. To him, the manhunt was data. Every hour he stayed ahead confirmed his theory. The Bureau relied more on procedure than instinct. By April 2001, news channels were calling it the Great Walkout. Late-night hosts joked about it. Newspapers ran headlines mocking the FBI. Ex-broker broke out. FBI broke down. They circulated his photo to airports, bus stations, and border crossings. But Dorsey had already changed his appearance. Shorter hair, tinted glasses, weight loss from weeks on the move. He looked ordinary, forgettable. The kind of man you'd never look at twice in a crowd. He took small jobs under fake names, always near ports or industrial sites, places where uniforms and ID badges changed hands daily. He lived quietly, always paying in cash, leaving before anyone learned his name. 3 months into the manhunt, a contractor at the same Illinois prison came forward claiming the escape wasn't possible without help. The FBI investigated dozens of staff, suspecting inside corruption. But the truth was worse. There had been no accomplice, just a man who had studied their routines and exploited a hole in their paperwork. That realization turned humiliation into frustration. Agents started fighting among themselves. Was it an intelligence failure or an operational one? In the end, it didn't matter. The world had already seen the cracks. By 2002, the trail had gone cold. But one young analyst noticed something strange. Every few months, minor white-collar crimes appeared in different states. Fraudulent IDs, fake company registrations, wire transfers under $10,000. Each bore the same meticulous handwriting on the forms. It wasn't proof, but it was a pattern. The kind only someone obsessed with systems could leave behind. Dorsey was still active, still out there, and still mocking them through precision. In late 2002, an anonymous letter arrived at a Chicago newspaper. "You can't catch a man who built your rules." It was signed MD. For the FBI, that was the trigger. They reopened the case under a new internal operation name, Project Blueprint. The chase was no longer about arrest. It was about reputation. He built a system so perfect, even he couldn't see where it would fail. By 2003, 2 years had passed since Michael Dorsey vanished from federal custody. For most fugitives, time is an enemy. For Dorsey, it had been an ally, until a single routine event undid everything he'd built. He was living quietly under the alias Daniel Harper, working as a financial consultant for a small construction firm in Portland, Oregon. The FBI had long given up expecting him to surface, until a low-level audit triggered a digital alert. The Social Security number attached to Harper's tax filings matched a defunct identity created by Dorsey's former company years earlier. In the age of paper records, he'd been invisible. In the age of databases, he'd left fingerprints in code. When the audit flagged the duplicate SSN, it was automatically forwarded to a Department of Justice cross-check system recently linked to FBI fugitive files. Within hours, an analyst in Washington noticed the match. Alias identity shares document pattern with known escapee, Michael Dorsey. At first, senior agents thought it was coincidence. But the details matched too closely. Same date of birth range, same type of employment, same city migration pattern. For 2 years, Dorsey had used his old habits to stay free. And it was those habits that finally betrayed him. On September 4th, 2003, local police in Portland pulled over a silver sedan for a broken taillight. The driver was calm, polite, carrying valid identification for Daniel Harper. Routine traffic stop until dispatch ran his fingerprints. Within minutes, the alert flashed on their screen. Federal escapee. Contact FBI immediately. When agents arrived, Dorsey didn't resist. He simply looked at them, smiled faintly, and said, "It took you long enough." The story made national news that same night. Headlines read, "Escape bank fraudster found in Oregon after 2 years on the run." But what humiliated the FBI wasn't just that he'd escaped. It was how he had lived, legally, quietly, in full view of the system that was supposed to be watching. After his recapture, the FBI launched an internal review titled Failure Analysis, Dorsey Case. It revealed shocking oversights, outdated tracking databases, lack of coordination between agencies, and over-reliance on manual logs. In simple terms, Dorsey had exploited bureaucracy itself. One internal memo read, "He did not hack the system. He obeyed it more efficiently than we did." For the Bureau, the embarrassment was permanent. They had spent nearly $5 million chasing a man who had literally lived down the street from one of their own field offices. Michael Dorsey was returned to federal custody to complete his original sentence, plus additional time for escape. But his name lived on in law enforcement training manuals as the case that changed modern federal coordination. Within a year, the Federal Inmate Digital Tracking System, FIDTS, was created, a direct result of his escape. Prison staff rotation, contractor access, and ID systems were all digitized to prevent another walkout. To this day, instructors at the FBI Academy refer to the case as the walk that shook the Bureau. As one retired agent summarized, "He didn't beat us with violence or power. He beat us with patience."